folks, welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McCusick. We're back for the matchups episode against the Chiefs. This is the defensive side. If you didn't already listen to the offensive side, go back and download that. Some good stuff there. Lots of information on Ravens staying ahead of the sticks in the run game, potentially taking advantage of Chiefs corners if conditions are somewhat wet. In terms of all kinds of things about Lamar Jackson and taking care of Chris Jones and whatnot that are worth listening to. And of course, a lot of that came from co-host Frazier Tafar. Frazier, how you doing today?
Doing good, Ken. Looking forward to breaking down the defense for this AFC Championship matchup against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. This is the matchup for our Odafe Owe claimed better than our 2000 Ravens defense.
There we go. I don't know if they're better than the 2000 Ravens defense. I would say no, but I do think this is the greatest Ravens team of all time. I think they already are. I think even if they were to lose this game, I think it would still be true. The problem is if they really want to have their legacy cemented among all NFL fans, they're going to have to win the next two games.
Yep.
And this is just one hell of a football team, and we're at a very fortunate confluence of history here to be watching this. It's very nice.
Yep, glad to be a part of it. Looking forward to going to the game and enjoying this with my brother. And I'm going to make this, hopefully the Ravens make this the best memory of our lives to this point.
That would be very cool indeed. Well, let's jump right in. Start us off with your first matchup.
Yep, I think we all know who our defensive matchup is going to be surrounded around. It's going to be number 15, but I'm going to take a deeper dive into what his weapons around him need to be suppressed. I think the main keys that they have is Kelsey, Rice, and Pacheco. In terms of passing, we need to be able to bracket Travis Kelsey with either Patrick Queen and Hamilton being able to take away the overtop and the outside and have Queen be able to continue to operate in the middle, or Roquan operate in the middle and take care of him not taking into the seam or into the post. Because I don't expect us to go man against Patrick Mahomes. It's just going to make it too easy for him to be able to dissect the defense and make a decision. So I expect us to kind of bracket Kelsey in that sense and kind of get Stevens almost on an island, maybe on a cover 3 island, not a true man-to-man, and be able to get him matched up on Rice and have their secondary receivers go against, whether it be Humphrey or Darby on the outside, and not have those two break the game and let MVS, Gray, and Tony make the plays.
I'll take a slightly different angle on a similar thing here. I think in terms of the Ravens secondary, they need to continue to reduce the responsibilities for the Ravens cornerbacks. Even if Marlon is back, he's going to be a more valuable physical asset, I think, than he will be a great coverage asset. So I think most of what he'll do of great value will be at the line of scrimmage. And then they're going to need to continue to get outstanding back end play and good rotation from that group. In this case, I don't mean rotation by snap. I'm talking about rotation of coverage in terms of how they move around and try and take away routes. I think this is a game where they want Kyle Hamilton up front for reasons we'll get into later. So a very important game to have an extra safety on the roster, on the game day roster. So you cannot go into this game with 3 safeties because you might be forced into a situation where you can't use Hamilton where you really need him, which is at that slot spot. Covering Travis Kelsey and also giving you a healthy additional dose of run defense.
Yeah, it's times like this we wish we had Daryl Worley back there being a good deployable safety and not having to worry about people coming off the practice squad and this thing or that. But I don't expect shots from KC. I think we're going to keep the lid on it just like we did against Houston, which was surprising that they didn't cross the 20-yard line of the Ravens all game. So it makes me excited to think what we're going to do against a Kansas City team that seems to be getting hot at the right time. They move the ball efficiently on a depleted Bills team. I think this Ravens defense is a whole different challenge. I'm excited to see what the interior pass rush is able to do, especially if Joe Thunley's not able to go with his pec injury. I think Matabike should be able to have a good game. Pierce, Jones, all the interior guys. I expect them to attack with either stunts, Pierce being the under and getting either Van Noy or Clowney as the over guy and getting through as quick as possible to Holmes. With that being said, I do want pressure to be applied to Mahomes, whether it be 5-man or a regular 4-man pressure, but also being able to keep him contained and not have him beat us with his legs, because he already can do it with his arm at will. We can't afford for him to beat us with his legs too.
I'm right there with you in terms of Mahomes. I think one of the things that really showed up against Stroud was absolutely relentless and effective pursuit with secondary pressure. So they got pressures initially, they got him flushed. Some cases he left the pocket of his own volition, where the pocket hadn't really broken down all the way yet. And they chased him and they forced him to throw that ball away. And there are about 8 individual instances in the game where he threw a ball away or grounded at the legs of receiver, where it was a matter of that pursuit really paying off for the Ravens. So they did a great job with that last week. They need to continue it and can't let Mahomes get the edge, obviously. You probably don't want to waste a spy on them. So your guys who are in zone coverage, they on the shallow end, they need to understand what they're doing. They need to know what their responsibilities are in terms of when they rush Mahomes with the pocket breaking. And you may want to do some disguise in those situations. Mahomes is very good at reading it, but you've got a limited number of weapons against an extraordinarily good player. What they have in terms of potential mismatches on that offensive line is something they've really got to take advantage of. If Joe Thuney is replaced by Nick Allegretti, that is a very young player coming in at a very important time. And, I've heard all kinds of coach speak this week about how they look at Allegretti as a starter also. That, first of all, it's telling me they probably are going to be playing. Thuney's probably going to be out. The second thing is they're already trying to build him up for this game, which seems unnecessary for starters if the guy's really good, and overly effusive based on what he's actually accomplished in the National Football League so far. And I think if he's going up against whatever 3-tech on the side, that's going to be a matchup the Ravens are going to really try and win, whether that's Pierce, whether that's Travis Jones, if it might be Matabike even. It's an opportunity to get a one-on-one matchup. You want to try and engineer that if possible. Get Creed Humphrey blocking a different direction. Get the left tackle out in space, so you have some room to operate there, and you got a good chance to beat a player like Allegretti.
Yeah, and back to your point about the spy, I think some things that we've seen this year from the Ravens and also a team like the Rams with a guy like Aaron Donald going against a guy like Lamar, he would kind of do like a mud rush kind of, especially if there was a stunt in the under player and he's the over player. He's kind of reading the quarterback and then firing off his first movement. I saw Matabike do that last week on, I don't know if it was Pierce that went inside and he went over on the left, and then he saw CJ Stroud leak and he just went and fired and he got the hit, the QB hit. But continuing to see that kind of pressure, not running out of your lane, staying disciplined, and not letting the game get too big and trying to make a play, I think that's the key.
Yeah. Okay, how about another one?
My other matchup will be Isaiah Pacheco against our front seven. I expect him to get his yards. He's just a physical guy, but I'm going to be curious to see how the Ravens replicate their efforts that they did last week, because they really stuffed Houston, especially in the beginning of the game. They were forced to throw the ball because they weren't running the ball at all. They got one big run from Singletary, and that accounted for a majority of his yardage. So yeah. I'm going to be excited to see how we can make Kansas City one-dimensional, because I think, yes, Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. He can make you pay anyway. But if you make a team one-dimensional, it's easy to set yourself up for success later in the game.
I agree with that certainly, and usually when Patrick Mahomes is one dimensional, it's because he has to be,
Yep.
and the Chiefs are behind in the game, so that's where you want to be relative to the Chiefs. Um, the Ravens have a couple of things going on in this game. First of all, the Chiefs have a very effective run game that is based on the combination of Pacheco's ability to exploit level 2 first contact opportunities and the fact that their interior offensive line has been very good and healthy for most of the season with Creed Humphrey, Tooney, and the guy that his name is escaping me. I want to say Greg Smith, but I don't think that's correct. The right
Mm,
guard's name for this is bad, and forgetting this is really bad. But anyway, the three of those, while I look this up, that are uh, that are there have done a good job of getting Pacheco some opportunities in level 2 for the first contact. And Pacheco, being a physical runner, has run over some of those guys and run through some tackles. The Ravens have, the Chiefs have had less success working against base defense. And the run in particular has been a lot worse when the Chiefs have put 12 personnel on the field. Now, the Chiefs last week used 1.80 tight ends per play, 90 on 50 plays. So,
wow.
some of that comes from 13 where they're getting 2 extra tight ends in the game, but obviously that points to a lot of 12 personnel, particularly in that game against Buffalo. Now, if they do a lot of that, and there's no guarantee that will happen again, by the way. Reed may go to a lot more 11, particularly if the field is sloppy and he thinks he can gain an advantage that way.
Yep.
I'm sure he'll do it. But it's if they're in 12, the Ravens are going to need to stop the run from nickel with Hamilton at big nickel, and I think he is the ultimate weapon on the field in this game in terms of being the player the Ravens need to address a lot of the strengths of Kansas City.
Yep. And I'm almost curious to see if the weather does affect the game in the sense of passing the ball. Will the Ravens take risks and send 6-man pressures and force Mahomes to make a decision quick, given that Kansas City's receivers don't have the greatest reputation this year? They haven't came up big in a lot of situations. I know last week VVS or Valdez Scanley was able to come up with a big catch late in the game, but they haven't came in clutch for Mahomes all year, and we should continue to force them to make those plays.
Yeah, one of the things that has not worked against Mahomes in the past for the Ravens specifically is trying to rush numbers. And so I think that is something that we will not see in this game. I think we'll see a lot of 4-man pressure. I think they'll even drop some players who would normally be pass rushers to play that short zone rather than give Mahomes easy hot reads, because he's very good at that. I mean, that's something that he's been so good at over the years that I wouldn't want to test it. I think it's the 2020. Let's see, they beat them 2 years ago, right? Didn't play them last year, beat them 2 years ago. So it must have been the 2020 game. I think that's right, because Patrick Queen was out there and he had a terrible game that day in coverage. And a lot of that was 5-man pressure was sent. Queen had real responsibilities. And Mahomes just decided he was going to pick on him the whole game. And he pretty much did. There were 5 individual cases where Patrick Queen faced emoting from one of his teammates after the play, which is unbelievable for one game. I mean, I look for that kind of thing. So, because I want to see who's pissed off about somebody not playing their assignment. It's one of the big keys you can gain from watching film, but it was unbelievable in that particular game how often Mahomes took advantage of Queen.
And I also think they're going to take advantage of linebackers again. Even though Roquan and Patrick Queen have been great this year, they still can. I talked about this earlier in the year. They can get sure of themselves when they bite on fakes and things of that nature. I think they get hurt when they do bite really hard. I think Roquan especially, because he's obviously the enforcer. He's looking to hit, but it can hurt him in the pass game. The one deep completion, what was it, 3rd and 13 in Nico Collins? Mm-hmm. That was an inside linebacker issue. That wasn't a DB issue. I think they didn't get enough depth on their drop, and that forced that throw over the middle. It was disappointing to see McDonald not send any kind of pressure in that situation, just kind of sit back and let it happen. But that's a different story. I think Kansas City is going to attack the middle of the field against the linebackers, I think.
Yeah. I guess let's jive right into what probably is the biggest individual matchup of this game, which is Kelce versus Hamilton. As far as I'm concerned, I mean, obviously there's a lot of players. It takes a village to stop Mahomes,
Yep.
but Travis Kelce versus Hamilton is potentially an enormous matchup on the strong side of formations when he flexes, and it takes more than the form of just covering him, which hopefully Hamilton can do effectively. And use his length and size extremely well to make life difficult on Mahomes and Kelce. But also, Kelce has to block Hamilton on some wide receiver screens, on some plays that go over that, and Hamilton's got to be able to do the same kind of job he's done all season, basically in terms of block shedding and getting downhill to make tackles when the Kansas City wants to run their small ball schemes to the outside. So hopefully that's something we'll see.
And the reason why I kind of said bracket Kelce earlier in the podcast is because last week against the Bills, I think it was the first throw that Mahomes had to Kelce. He threw it before he even turned out of his break, and he put it out in space, not like it was on his body. It was out in space, out in front of Kelce, and he just snagged it out of the air. Those are those kind of chemistry plays like we see with Lamar and Mark, Kelce and Mahomes. You can't stop that kind of connection overnight. So bracketing him and not being able to let him have a three-way go, because that throw specifically I'm talking about, there's no way you can defend that with a one-on-one coverage because you can't beat timing. So if you're able to have someone cover his inside leverage and have someone like Hamilton be able to jump the outside cut or the go, that is where we're able to neutralize Kelce and not put him in situations like we did against the 2021 win where we had oh my gosh, what's his name? Number 40.
Harrison?
Had Harrison covering him. That was probably the worst idea I've ever seen in my life. Having Harrison cover Kelce. I don't think we're going to see that mistake this game.
All right. Well, should be a great one. Anything else before we log off here?
If you're going to the game on Sunday, I don't want Mahomes to be able to think in that huddle.
There you go.
I don't want nothing going on in that mind. I want him to forget the call. I want him to forget everything because we're so loud during every single drive, every single play. I expect it to be a wild house on Sunday.
It has absolutely mattered this year. The Ravens, I've been posting now some graphics, but they 19 false starts and 5 delay games. I think it is. It might be 6. Anyway, both lead the NFL in terms of opponent penalties at home. So this is something where hopefully the Ravens will generate quite a bit of that. The noise was impressive this last week. And oftentimes also, if you're going with a lot of cold weather gear, you can't hear it. It's going to be a little bit warmer this week. People will have a little bit less on their heads. You're going to hear it, but you still need to make it. And it needs to start when they start the huddle, when they begin to huddle. If you waste that time without getting your cheer going, then you really will miss out on a lot of that valuable communication breakup you can be part of. Frazier, always a pleasure doing this show with you. Tell folks where they can talk football with you online.
You guys can reach me at X/Twitter at F_RAVE8. That's F_Rave8.
All right. Other folks out there, if you'd like to be on a film study short, hit me up. We got not only the possibility of a game after this week, which we certainly hope is going to happen. We hope we have another matchup show for you on both sides of the ball, but we also have the possibility of an off season coming up, during which time there'll be lots of Ravens content produced on this show. And I want you to be a part of it. So hit me up, whether it's something you want to hear, want to see discussed, or actually want to do, which is always the preferable one if you have passion for it, that you come on. And if you want to take a different bent on this, if you don't feel like you're knowledgeable enough about the topic, come on and ask questions. That's fine too. You don't have to be someone who knows everything about a particular topic to be make a very significant contribution to the show. Really appreciate all the loyalty from the listeners this year. It's been absolutely terrific. And you folks really make me encouraged to continue doing this. And I appreciate all of what you've done for this show. For Frazier Tafar, this is Ken McCusick saying goodbye, and we'll talk to you next week, we hope, on Matchups.